So on this channel, we've covered every single Kekkei Genkai and we've covered all of the dojutsu, but that doesn't even begin to open the door to all of the jutsus I think we can cover on this page. And that's mostly because we haven't even begun to touch clan specific jutsus. So the usual way I would approach a Sunday video is I would try and explain every single clan specific jutsu all in one video. But here's the thing, we know a lot more about clan specific jutsus than we know about individual Kekkei Genkai. And I feel like I would be doing the jutsus themselves and the story of the clans behind them a small disservice if I didn't cover them in depth. Because here's the thing, to talk about the jutsus, we have to talk about the clans that formed the jutsus, and therefore I have to talk about the history of the clans. So it's a really long video if I want to explain all 16 clan specific jutsus and their origin stories and why they were made. Now that we're on the same page, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Because listen, I'm gonna try my best to keep you well informed about basically all things anime, and if you love that, then I'd love to have you here. People may say that there's a lot of equally great clan specific jutsus, but that's not true. Sure, a lot of them might be similar in that middle range, but there's one that rises above them all. And I think we all know what we're talking about. We're talking about the Nara clan's Shadow Possession Jutsu. I mean, this jutsu is so badass and it's used so creatively and by some of the best characters in the entirety of this show. How could we not cover it first? Since we're talking about who uses it, it is the Nara clan, and we've only ever actually seen it been used by 3 people. That would be Shikaku, Shikamaru, and Shikadai. The fact that we've only ever seen Shadow Possession Jutsu out of these 3 people is weird though, because the Nara clan is one of the bigger clans in Konoha because it's been there since Konoha's inception. And on top of that, in the Nara clan, being able to use the Shadow Possession Jutsu is a rite of passage. So you would think surely we should see more users of this. And we'll get into why we don't see more users of it later. But first, let's talk about the beginning of the Nara clan. Like I said a second ago, the Nara clan has been in Konoha for a long time, and they've always been blessed with high intellect. Because of that, the Nara clan was actually in charge of creating medicinal herbs and remedies for the sick people in Konoha. They were doctors and politicians and high-level authority people. But the problem is, in order to create medicinal remedies and things like that, you need, the components of those remedies. And unfortunately, one of those components was really hard to acquire. That component being deer antlers. Deer antlers have been used in Western medicinal remedies for thousands of years. While it is more traditionally Chinese medicine that deer antler has been found to be used in, practitioners of Western medicine have claimed that when deer antler is consumed by humans, it confers a myriad of different medicinal advantages. They claim it's anti-cancer, anti-osteoporosis, anti-fatigue, all of these kinds of things. So the fact that this made it into Naruto lore isn't really that outside of the box. The only problem with deer antlers is that they're connected to deer, and deer are faster than humans. So in order to catch deer without spooking them, the Shadow Possession Jutsu was made. And the coolest part is that using shadows actually makes a lot of sense, considering that all of these deer were coming from a part of the forest around Konoha that the Nara clan protects. And in a forest, there is almost limitless shadows for a Nara clan member to access. Pair that with the fact that as a shadow approaches, it's completely silent, and it's deer hunting season, baby. They actually didn't kill the deer are protected. They would just cut their antlers off, but that's neither here nor there. What's truly impressive about this technique though is the fact that given the right circumstances and the correct amount of chakra, a shadow can extend almost limitlessly, which you would think would be really hard to manage because once it gets really far away from you, you can't see it and therefore you can't drive it? Guide would have been a better word. I don't know why I chose drive, but this is what makes the Shadow Possession Jutsu so cool. Nara clan members actually share a neural link with their shadow. Neural link, what does that mean? We're talking SAO here? It means that essentially a Nara clan member who has mastered Shadow Possession Jutsu can see where their shadow is at all times subconsciously. And therefore, even if they can't see that they've hit the target they're aiming at with their shadow, when it connects, they will get a subconscious uplink to that person's shadow. On top of almost limitless range, this jutsu also has almost limitless power. If a Nara clan clan member is sufficiently close to their target and has enough chakra, there is almost no amount of power they can't inflict on their target. I'll give you an example. In Shikamaru's Shinden, Shikamaru's light novel, we see that during a 5 Kage summit, Shikamaru flies into a fit of rage. It's at this point that he casts Shadow Possession Jutsu on all 5 Kage simultaneously, and he holds them there against their will. And it's implied that only Naruto and possibly Gaara could have broken out of this stranglehold. That's 5 Kage simultaneously just because Shikamaru was close to them. And I can hear you asking already, well then how is it so strong? And it's a shadow. What chakra release is it? What's cool about it is it isn't any 5 of the nature chakra releases, it's a yin release chakra release. Yin release is one of the least understood and explained things in the entirety of Naruto, but it's also insanely powerful, and that's why Shadow Possession is insanely powerful. I'll quickly breeze over what yin release is. Outside of the 5 basic chakra natures, there is yin and yang, and I'm gonna make a video explaining these in depth as I do. Yin release is when you use spiritual energy in order to control your imagination in order to make something out of nothing. It's most notably inherited by the Uchiha clan, but it's also used by other clans outside of them, like the Nara. I say it's most notably used by the Uchiha because all genjutsu is technically yin release, which makes sense if you think about it. You make someone see something that's not there by controlling their imagination. Yin release. But by giving form to their own shadows through the form of their own imagination, the Nara clan is also using yin release. However, this jutsu isn't powerful all of the time. In fact, think of Shadow Possession Jutsu kind of as the opposite of Escanor from Seven Deadly Sins. One would think while it's dark out that Shadow Possession Jutsu would be at its peak power because the entire world is encompassed in a shadow. Unfortunately though, it's the exact opposite. Shikamaru Shinden, the light novel I mentioned earlier, clarified for us that in order to catch someone's shadow, they must be casting a shadow. Therefore, in utter and complete darkness, if there's no shadow to be caught because there's no light being cast, it can't be used. This doesn't rule out using Shadow Possession Jutsu at night. Obviously, the moon exists, but in very, very dark circumstances, Shikamaru's out of luck. Ooh, you know what I just remembered? There was an entire episode in the anime and an entire chapter in the manga about other members of the Nara clan that used their Shadow Possession Jutsu to hold down the Ten Tails. So we've actually also seen 4 other people outside of the Shikamaru lineage use the Nara clan technique. I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. But anyways, now that we've talked about the beginnings of the Shadow Possession Jutsu and the beginning of the Nara clan and those who use it, let's talk about how the jutsu has progressed over the years. Obviously, the jutsu was created to catch deer, but as time progressed, it was found out,
oh, listen, there's like 2 wars going on. We could probably adapt this to other things.
And this is where we begin to see other derived jutsus come from the Shadow Possession technique, like the Shadow Clutch technique that allows a user of the Shadow Possession Jutsu to grab things with their shadow and then harden their shadow to steel level hardness. Using this, they can essentially use their shadow as a massive hand that they can use to swing either enemies or objects at enemies. We see it used in conjunction with Choji's human bullet tank to attack the Ten Tails. After that, there's the Shadow Imitation Field technique, which allows a user to spread their shadow out in a circle around them in order to catch all the enemies in their kind of perimeter. We see Shikadai do this in the Chunin exams against Boruto before, he cheats. After that, there's the Shadow Imitation Shadow Bind technique. This one's super interesting actually, because essentially what this allows Nara clan members to do is attach their shadow to friendly people. And since they're friendly, they don't control the movements of the people they have attached their shadow to. But since they have a neural uplink with their shadow, they can sense when the people they've attached their shadow to come into contact with enemies. And at that moment, they can then attach their shadow that they've connected to their friendly to the enemy. So let's say you attach this shadow to Kakashi. He can fight you, and if he ever lands a hit on you, you are then under the possession of Shadow Jutsu. After that, there's the Shadow Imitation Shuriken technique, which Shikamaru created in order to kill Hidan. Essentially, Shikamaru, while studying the way that Asuma was able to put chakra into his chakra blades, I forgot, I own one of these, derived a way to put his chakra in the form of a Shadow Possession Jutsu into one of those blades. Therefore, if he hit your shadow with that blade, he would then have a complete Shadow Possession Jutsu. This compensates massively for the weaknesses of Shadow Possession Jutsu, mostly the fact that, the shadow is extending from the user. But let's get into the big hitters of the derived jutsus from Shadow Possession technique. like shadow sewing technique. Shadow sewing technique is a technique used by many members of the Nara clan. And essentially, instead of relying simply on shadow possession technique to hold your opponent down, you spread your shadow into many needles. These needles can then be used to either pierce your target or wrap around their arms or stop them from doing jutsus. It can even be used to drag enemies near you without you moving a muscle using the black spider lily technique. Essentially, after completing shadow possession jutsu and then using shadow sewing to grab them, you can then use those sewing like needles of the shadow in order to pull them towards you. And if you're not trying to pull enemies towards you, you can grab items and throw them with the shadow sewing technique. Shikamaru uses this to great effect by throwing kunai with him with precise accuracy. But all of these derived jutsus pale in comparison to our last one, the shadow neck binding technique. This jutsu was not made for deers. This jutsu was made for war. Essentially, after completing shadow possession jutsu, a Nara clan member can sneak their shadow up the person they possessed's body, and they can wrap a hand around their throat and choke them to death. But this ability actually doesn't end there, because Nara clan members can actually use this ability on themselves, and not in the way you're thinking, okay? If a Nara clan member is put under genjutsu, they can use this ability to climb up to their hands and break a finger in order to break them out of that genjutsu. However, this is technically a forbidden jutsu because it murders people. And that's all the derived jutsus from shadow possession technique. I also have a fun fact for you that I didn't know how to work into the other parts of this video. Nara clan members wear their kunai in different places from usual placement. You know how most ninjas have like a baseball sized bag that they reach into that seems to hold most of their ninja tools on their waist? Or they'll have a kunai that they keep in a wrapping around their waist in that tiny little kind of rectangular box. So Nara clan members will actually stash their ninja tools in an area that's not one of those two. Because let's say they catch someone in shadow possession jutsu, and now they want to take a kunai out and throw it at that person to impale them. They don't want a kunai coming back at them. So if they reach for a kunai in a typical place and the person that they have under their possession is doing the exact same movements like they would be, they're gonna get a kunai back. I don't know. That's a little fun fact that I always loved that Kishimoto threw in. And that's it. That's essentially everything you need to know about the Nara clan and the shadow possession technique. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this page, and hit that noti bell, because we have like 16 other clan specific jutsus to cover. Listen, I'm not saying that I think I deserve to be in the Nara clan, but I'd say I'm pretty smart and I have their awful hairline. So you tell me.